Hey James, your three running backs, Kevon, Katron, and Nick, all had pretty much equal touches against Purdue. Are you comfortable with that kind of a rotation moving forward, especially given they all seem to bring something a little different to the table?
Yeah, as right now, we're going to rotate those guys by series. However it plays out with touches, it just really depends on the drive in the series and what's called, and so that could be a little bit different. And then, like I've talked about in the past, if one of those guys get really hot, then obviously the rotation could change. But right now, it's 1 to 1 to 1.
James, how important is Chopra in your defense right now, given that it seemed like the most burst as a pass rusher last week?
Yeah, from our perspective, very, very important. He's done a nice job for us in camp. He's getting more comfortable, more confident every single day. Obviously, we brought him here for a reason, and not only when we recruited him out of high school, but then obviously once he entered the transfer portal, we feel like he can help our defense in a significant way. So excited about him continue to grow and continue to grow his role within the scheme.
James, how long does it take a quarterback to learn an offense? If you've coached a lot of young quarterbacks, so what's the timeline in your mind of when you're expecting a player to be able to pick things up to the point you would trust them in a game, and then where are your guys on that timeline of what your expectations are?
Yeah, I think in year one, guys can do enough to be trusted, especially if you come in at mid-semester and you're there for spring. But in terms of where it's second nature, I think it takes that second year to really take that significant step within the offense. I think Sean knew the offense last year. Obviously, he's in a much different position in year two. I think Bayer's in a similar situation. I think the two young kids, they're in year one. I think they're pretty progressed based on how they've worked for year one, but it's still year one for them.
James, you mentioned after the game on Thursday your desire to rotate Bryson at right tackle. You mentioned that Caden had some things to work on. Have you seen both of those guys respond to what happened in week one? And should we expect to see both of them involved again at that position here?
Yeah, we plan on, I think like I told you guys before the season, Effner has earned the right to play, so we can rotate him in at tackle. And Hunter Norzad has earned the right to play, and we'll rotate him at both guards and possibly center as well. That'll be week to week and what we think makes the most sense and where's the right time and right place to do it. But those guys will play. They earned that right during camp, and then they did enough in week one that role will either stay the same or could possibly grow.
James Kazaya is in Smith-Wilford, so that's what he traveled. Do you expect to have him available this week?
Not sure yet. Not ready to make that decision or public announcement.
James, I thought it was interesting that Kevon started the game with gloves on, finished them without. I was just curious, how much impact or input do you guys as a coaching staff, maybe the equipment guys, have on the accessories these guys wear? Is it the personal preference to wear them? Does Kevon make that decision, or you guys tell him, hey, maybe put them on for the next game?
Yeah, I'd be honest, I had no idea. I didn't even know it until you said that. Gloves, wristbands, I have no idea.
He looked really old school, and then he tweeted after the game and he made him wear gloves again.
Oh, awesome. I love it. I didn't know. I didn't see the tweet. I wasn't aware of his gloves or not. And we're obviously not coaching at that level. It's whatever they're most comfortable with to play in.
Hey James, over the past 3 years, you've talked about that middle eight. So over the last 3 years, you guys are 14-2 when you've won that battle. Is that something you guys game plan for, and how much emphasis is in that in terms of the play calling?
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily play calling, but yeah, we talk about the importance of the middle eight. That statistic is probably fairly consistent across the country. If you look at winning the middle eight and what it does. Sometimes the opportunity doesn't really even come because you got to have the ball at the end of the first half and get the ball at the end of the second half. It does dictate some of our decision making when it comes to coin toss and our philosophy with the coin toss. But it's a stat that we're aware of, and we try to make sure the guys understand the significance of it and the importance of it in terms of back-to-back possessions.
what's your coin toss philosophy? Because like oftentimes you'll hear a lot of people say they want the ball before the half and then try to double up before going in. Like what's your coin toss philosophy?
We typically defer for that very reason for the middle 8 opportunities.
Because with the 7 freshmen who got in, what was their Friday and Saturday like? You know, when they're in the cold test, but really going through film and that process for those freshmen for the first time, you know, for the post game film session.
Yeah, those guys have been good. A lot of them were here in the spring. That helps our early enrollment numbers have gone up, as you guys know. So that's helped those guys. But those guys, I think, have done a really good job in the spring and in the summer, and then obviously in training camp, and us doing everything we possibly could to prepare them for what it was going to be like. The veterans taking them under their wing. And for most of those guys, they were able to kind of rotate in kind of in a complementary fashion rather than, you know, being the first guy on the field and having to kind of carry the load. So hopefully that will continue to grow. But so far so good. We've been pleased with them. Hopefully we'll get more guys opportunities this weekend.
Do you see guys coming in that are young, that are already good at watching film and getting the most out of that? Does that make sense? Are you guys able to teach guys to be better at watching film?
I think some guys, yes, depending on the high school program they come from. Some of these high school quarterbacks, based on some of the trainings, you know, I think that's one of the things about the Elite 11 experience. They do a lot of college and NFL type prep that a lot of these guys haven't had before. So that gives them a little bit of a head start. But most do not. Most do not. They need to be taught how to watch film. I even think sometimes, you know, it takes till their second year in college to really start to figure that out. We talk about having a routine a lot, the importance of their, you know, weekly and daily routine, and that needs to be taught for a lot of these guys.
What are the advantages of for the run game operating at the pistol?
Well, when you talk about the pistol and being in the dot, or however you describe it, right behind the quarterback, obviously you're not showing your hand a little bit. You know, in terms of the running back away from the tight end, the running back to the tight end. Most defenses have specific calls based on where the back's location is. So by the running back being behind the quarterback takes some of that away. It takes some of that away for sure. That's probably the biggest reason to do it. It can create, depending on how you run them, it can create some challenges in terms of the zone reads that typically you're using from an offset position. But the biggest advantage is the defense not being able to put it into a category based on the back on the same side as the tight end or away. And typically you have very specific runs that you run out of those sets. So you'll also see people shift kind of right before the snap, knowing that defenses, you know, are looking at, you know, the back's alignment. So either moving them, putting them in the dot, or having some things where we could have same side runs where you're running traditional runs that you would normally run from opposite, and you're keeping them on the same side to break some tendencies.
Time for 2 more.
How do you feel about where Kobe and Tyler are at after games went back?
Yeah, I think game one, it's early to kind of decide, but obviously they played well enough for us to win. You know, that game wasn't necessarily a middle linebacker's game in terms of where they're going to dictate, you know, the success of the defense or not. But they were able to get us, you know, lined up and take control of the defense. We didn't have a whole lot of those missed assignments and things like that. But, you know, but I was proud of it. It's something to build on.
James, something I've become curious in the last couple of practices, the quarterbacks are all together wearing their numbers. Who's operating the scout team for you at quarterback?
We're rotating both Pravula and Bayer are down there, as well as Mason Stahl's taking some reps down there too.
Thanks.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah, I don't think we've typically done the numbers for the quarterbacks down there because they've typically rotated. Depends sometimes if we've had a guy like Mason or something like that, we may do.
Yeah, I couldn't quite recall, so appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.